Hey everybody, KC here. So longtime morning newsbeat readers know that I've always been sort of enthralled by the idea of a checkout-free store experience. Have been since I went to the very first Amazon Go store in Seattle. And Amazon Go is not the only company that's doing that. In fact, there's been a lot of other companies in the news lately who've been kind of developing checkout-free technologies. A number of years ago, I was in San Francisco. I went to see an Amazon Go store there, and I also saw prototype stores that had been started by Standard Cognition and Zippin. And because the whole idea of checkout free seems to be getting more traction lately, I wanted to reach out to executives at those two companies and find out what they were doing. Where are they? What kind of growth curve do I see? Do they see going forward? And so I got a little two-parter for you. Today, I'm going to have a conversation with Michael Suswal, who is the co-founder and chief business officer for Standard Cognition. He's going to tell us about their business. And then tomorrow, we're going to have Krishna Motukuri, who is the co-founder and CEO of Zippin. I think they're interesting conversations. In certain cases, I asked them the same question because I wanted to see, compare and contrast their answers. But we talked about a lot of different things. It was really educational, and I hope you enjoy my conversations with them. So, as I said, first up, Michael Suswal, co-founder, chief business officer, Standard Cognition. Enjoy. Well, Michael Suswal, welcome to Morning Newsbeat. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
So, listen, the general perception out there is that, Amazon sort of invented or certainly pioneered the whole notion of a checkout-free experience. But tell me, when did the light bulb go on over your head?
Yeah, it's really a good question, actually, because Amazon had been doing this in secret for 7 years before we started. And they had spent about $1 billion already when we were just starting getting going. But the reality is the technology, the software that needed to be created wouldn't run on hardware from even just 5 years ago. Even our system would not run today on hardware from 5 years ago. And so it was interesting to see that how starting too early could actually be a detriment to you. And I think in the case of Amazon, they had actually started working on shelf sensors and different kinds of techniques that were more available at the time, and now they're kind of backtracking away from that. But we kind of saw the hardware and the GPU movement happening. NVIDIA was getting more and more sophisticated, and we saw the autonomous car world generating the kinds of hardware that we needed to do autonomous checkout. And so it was back early 2016 when me and Jordan and some of our other co-founders were working at the Securities and Exchange Commission, and we had this little project group going on, which was, all of New York finance was open to anyone who wanted to join, was really focused on engineers, and the goal of it was to look at AI and computer vision and to just look at the most cutting edge things and practice and do new implementations with it. And by middle of 2016, we had said, you know what, let's do computer vision, let's do AI as a project on the side during nights and weekends. And we moved into, it was actually cheaper to rent a garage or use our other co-founders' garage in Texas and fly down there every weekend than it was to rent in New York. So that's what we did. And we soon realized, actually a demo that Jordan did, our CEO, was to have background subtraction of a wine bottle. And after we had done that, and he had shown that he could identify an object through video, he got us all to sign up. And so that was late October, September-ish 2016. And then I was hooked. Jordan was obviously hooked, and we got the other founders to agree to join. But it was really a combining of a couple things. One, technology was finally capable of being able to process vast amounts of data. You know the saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's not true. picture's worth about 1,000,000 words. And there's a lot of data that goes into a single snapshot. And it took us a lot of processing to do it. But now that we could, it was exciting about what we could unlock. And we looked at, where in the world was a big market. And retail is the third largest market in the world after healthcare and military. And we looked at where innovation had been slow to take root. Jordan and I really love optimizing for high barriers of entry because maybe we're a little bit arrogant and we think we can do it. And it keeps the other people away. And so we were super excited about it. And we wanted to tackle specifically autonomous checkout for retail because retail had proven, you look at the retail tech market and there's a lot of startups. There are hundreds, thousands of startups in retail tech, not so much in retail. And so what was the disconnect there? And that as the business guy on the team, that's what got me super excited was there's a problem there that I could hack. And there's something wrong with the ecosystem between retail tech startups and actually retail tech in the wild. And that was what got me excited into the industry.
It's interesting because if you go back and look at, self-checkout has been around for a long time.
Yeah, sure.
But if you were to go back and look at self-checkout lanes in supermarkets in 2016, now 6 years later, they are not in any significantly different and not any better, right? Maybe they have newer platforms that they're running on, but the basic experience as a customer, it is pretty much the same. And I know for a number of years I've been writing about somebody's got to figure out how to improve the self-checkout experience. And it's only recently that I kind of realized, well, that's essentially what you guys are doing. You're just leapfrogging it in a lot of ways and saying, well, if you really want to make a great self-checkout experience, you just get rid of the self. You just move it.
Just get rid of the self. Right? I was just going to say that's perfect. Yes.
And I keep waiting, and nobody has said this, but I keep wondering, because when I explain self-checkout, checkout-free experiences to people, I always say it's like TSA pre-check, or it's like Easy Pass for a store, and I keep wondering, because to me that's essentially what it is as a customer, right? It's eliminating the friction, the most friction-filled part of the experience.
Yeah, I think Easy Pass is a good example. Just get what you want and leave, right? And in the case of Easy Pass, you're just driving past, but it's similar to that. And that is the core concept of what we do. But there's a lot of different players who try to tackle that. Like the self-checkout kiosks, I'd say the number one in that space is probably Mashgin, even though they're still pretty small. But it's super cool, and you can basically scan all of your items at one time. But there's really so much more that you can do if you understand how people are moving through the space and the correlations between what they pick up, who they're shopping with, and where their hand breaks the shelf plane. And most importantly, something like 95% of shopping is actually not buying stuff. So you pick things up, you look at things, you don't buy any of it, right? You just select from that what you're going to buy, but that's the only thing retailers and brands have data for right now, is what you actually purchase, and not so much on how the space is being utilized and how it's presenting products to customers. And it's important to us that we are able to do that. And so we rely on only cameras on the ceiling, which is obviously cheaper, but it also gives us data points to how people are utilizing physical spaces, let alone retail spaces. And it's super interesting and also super private. And it's really important to us on that last point. Actually, it's generally our first point. Right. We have the 5 hurdles of autonomous checkout, and P is first for privacy. And it's really important to us that while we do collect data, that we never say, hey, Kevin picked up a Snickers bar today. It's more 80% of the people that pick up Snickers bar also look at milk, and 20% pick up a pint of milk. It's that kind of anonymous data that's still extremely valuable to retailers and brands to service their communities better. And that's really where our inspiration came from initially, was localization, customization, personalization, which is what you hear anytime you go to a retail conference now. And it's about servicing local communities.
And by the way, I love that insight that 95% of the shopping trip is not spent shopping. That's a really interesting. I mean, and it's so true. It's getting into the car, going through the checkout, whatever it is, but it's not actually spent shopping. I think that's really interesting. But to go back to what you just said, I mean, yes, it's anonymous, but you have to know, you have the data on what I bought, because you had to charge me for the Snickers bar. You had to charge me for the milk. So that data is there. It's just private.
Well, yes and no. So if the FBI called us and said, hey, I want all Kevin's data, it would be damn near impossible for us to do that. And that's on purpose. The reason is
I have the data. If you've sent me a receipt, I have it.
You have the data. That's right. But I don't necessarily know it's Kevin's data because the token and key, it's kind of like Apple Pay. We token and key the receipts or the payment transaction, and we deliver the receipts to you. But we don't keep that on file, and that's important. Now, if you sign up for the retailer's loyalty program, then that data is kept on file with the retailer, and that's what loyalty programs are for, and everyone kind of knows that. And we encourage our retailers to be more explicit about that, because all of the data shows the more explicit you are about what you're doing with people's data, the more they participate. And most of the time, it's not nefarious. We have this concept that it is, but really it's about stores wanting to stock their shelves better so that shoppers will come there. And if they understand the communities better, then they can be more successful. And so it's really about, we don't need to know that Kevin shops at this store. We just need to know that there are this X amount of people that come through this store a day, and this is generally the shopping trends. And we can correlate that to a multitude of different facets to improve product selection, to improve store layout, and not just make it awesome for the shoppers, but also frictionless for the retailer.
So let's back up a little bit. So I saw at least the beginnings of you were in sort of the pilot mode up at Polar Park, did the piece for Morning Newsbeat about that. But talk to me about when you're working with a store. Okay, what is the consumer experience? How does the technology work in general terms, so that Morning Newsbeat readers and viewers have a sense of what it means to the store? And as part of that, is it easier can stores be retrofitted? Or do you have to start? Is it better to start fresh? So, Bill, it's a long question.
Sure. So it is always easier to start from scratch, but we built our company around a certain thesis, which is there are millions of stores in existence. It takes decades and decades and decades to create a retail chain. Let's just work with the retailers that are already there. And that means a few things. That means we've built our technology focused around retrofitting, so that we can scale through thousands of stores that already exist with each retail chain. But also it meant that we had to build it in a way that was easy to install, that didn't disrupt business, and added a lot of friction for us. But the one thing that we absolutely must do, whether it's a build out or a retrofit, but especially for a retrofit, is to adhere to the brand guidelines of that retailer. The worst thing I can possibly do to this planet is turn every store into an Amazon Go store. Not that Amazon Go is bad, but we have different retailers for a reason. There's different ways of appealing to different markets. And these retailers have learned over decades and in some cases century or more, how to best service their markets and their communities. And though I would never want to go to a retailer and try to make them change that. I'd much rather fit our technology into the experience they want. And so as I talk about this technology with retailers and all of the data that we can give them and how we can help their performance and efficiency, one of the things they get most excited about is we're not going to tell them where to put products. We're not going to tell them about the lighting in their store, the colors of their store, what deals they can do. The autonomy of the manager of that store should be free to add manager special baskets and whatever they want to do that has been proven to do well for their retail outfit. And so one of our other 5 pillars is called flexibility. And flexibility is really important to us to be able to provide the experience that the retailer is looking for that store. And we don't shove down one experience down their throat. So you go to Polar Park or one of our Compass locations or Circle K or one of our other retailers, the experience is going to look and feel a little bit different. Now, it's still cameras on the ceiling. And for the most part, our check-in system is more or less unified now, although not completely. But we're adding new check-in solutions and new ways to interact with the store and engage with that retailer. And that's really important to us, because I just don't want a world where every store feels the same. And it should just, that's a store built for robots that allows humans to come in. I'd much rather go into a store that is meant for humans to interact with, and then we are able to put our technology there. And so generally speaking, we have a few different shopping experiences. One is you walk into the store, at some point you tap your phone to a station, you just tap it somewhere, and when you're done shopping, you just leave and you get charged automatically. But we are also launching this year a kiosk app that allows you to stand in front of the kiosk. It tells you what you have in your, or what you've taken from the store, even if it's in your pocket or whatever it might be, more similar to the self-checkout experience, but you don't have to scan anything or bag anything. You just get there, it tells you what you owe, and you'll be able to tap your credit card without even using an app, and then just leave. Now, that's a precursor to the cash experience, which we will launch in due course after that. But we need more data, because we need to increase the speed of the system to have real-time checkouts.
I'm sorry.
I see a question brewing, so I'll let you go.
Well, a precursor to the cash experience. So in other words, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's really important for retailers, especially in the convenience store space where we have focused most of our efforts, that we accept cash. Something like 70% of transactions in Japan are still cash-based. At US convenience stores, it's around 50 to 60% cash-based. And so, you know, it would be a tragedy, I think, if the world forgot about people who like using cash, especially for the unbanked. And cash should be accepted everywhere, and it generally is. And until that changes, I want to be sure that we're thinking about those folks. And that would just mean you don't use the app, you don't use the credit card. You walk into the store, you pick things up you want, you stand in front of the same machine, it tells you what you owe, and instead of tapping your credit card, you'll slide in cash. Now there's ways to do that easier now, but in order to service the whole store and provide data for everything, it is a lot of compute power. And until we can reduce our latency to 2 or 3 seconds rather than 2 or 3 minutes, we can't do cash. But as soon as that opens up, and we expect it to in the end of Q4 this year, beginning Q1 next year, we'll have the cash experience introduced. And we have done it in the past, but we've taken it in, put it, as we improve the system, we reduce our services at some point.
Not accepting Bitcoin yet, though, I guess.
I would love to. I would love, no, I know you are, but it is something that is high on my personal desire list, because we actually have an investor who's really big into Bitcoin, and I would very much love to allow Bitcoin services. But that's a whole other can of worms.
That's a different conversation. So
different conversation.
Is this, you referred, I don't know if you were joking or what, but Amazon having spent $1 billion before they—
No, that was real.
Okay. So that most retailers will hear that and say, oh man, there's no way I can even play on this field because it's too expensive. So my question is this an affordable technology for retailers who are independents, whether that means they're 1 store, 10 stores, or how does that work? How does it play?
Yeah, I think until recently it wasn't. And I say recently, I mean, we, in October, we went to NACS, which is the North American Convenience Store Convention. And we got on stage and said, hey, we have an autonomous retail initiative. And the purpose of it is to say we are here for the smaller retailers now. Up until recently, it's very expensive to get all the technology and to do all the integrations, to figure out how all of the retailer systems work. But we've been able to decrease the cost of that a lot over the last even just year, let alone the last 3 years. And so we're about an order of magnitude cheaper than Amazon is right now. And that's because we're only cameras on the ceiling in the store. So it's much, much cheaper to install. And then the running of that system has also gotten cheaper because we don't have to rely so much on learning as we go. We're much more like a bag of Doritos in one store is a bag of Doritos in another store. And we've accumulated enough data at this point where actually when we open to a new store, a new retailer, the lead time to doing that is much, much shorter than it used to be.
And let me put the question from a slightly different angle, which is, okay, if I'm opening a store, I've got to put in checkouts, whether I'm going to put in all service, all man checkouts, or a hybrid with self-checkout and regular. Is the cost of putting in a system like yours, is it dramatically more expensive than putting in however many checkouts it happens to be? Is it roughly in the same ballpark? And then I guess then the argument, and then at the end of the day, there's also some savings, I guess, because I don't have to man all those checkouts.
Well, yeah. So forget about the savings on the labor side for a minute. The cost of a double-sided self-checkout machine is, upwards of $50K. We're doing our micro markets for cheaper than that. And so, in our University of Houston space, we have a store there, and the owner of that space decided to rip out their self-checkout kiosk, and now the only way to transact is through Standard, or actually through their app, but we power that. So it is absolutely comparable, and it is absolutely a choice you can make. But there are still benefits to having cashiers on site, and not even cashiers, just staff. And we think that's a better way of thinking about it. Because if we can reduce the number of transactions that a person has to do in a day, we increase the amount of engagement they have with customers, the amount of stocking and perfect store that the retailer is able to accomplish. Their inventory numbers get better. And really the other efficiencies that the system brings, you're not going to get that from a self-checkout kiosk or just a regular cash register and counter. Well, not to mention the real estate that eats up.
I mean, from the personnel point of view, it makes sense to have people there, but they're actually in the customer service business as opposed to, they have customer service roles as opposed to scanning and bagging and all that kind of stuff roles, right? I mean, they can actually be paying attention and you can hire differently. Right? You can hire people. You look for people who are going to engage with the customer as opposed to somebody who's got a fast wrist.
Which is extremely important right now, given that the retail industry, especially for cashiers, are unable to hire at all. Like they can get people in for a month or two, but they leave right away. It's extremely hard to hire in the retail market right now. And you're right. The desire from the retailers is not to remove staff. Largely, it is to increase their engagement with customers as customer service. The two biggest complaints in retail are poor customer service and long lines. Basically, we're attacking both of those. And really going back to some of the Genesis story, one of my fantasies with this technology, if I can say that, has always been this romanticization of the olden times that probably didn't exist. I'm imagining a market in ancient Roman times or on the docks of Sparta, where all these shipping lanes are coming in. The people coming up to you, and it's like, oh hey, we don't have the apples that you normally like, but we definitely have this new thing coming in. I think your customers are going to like it. And it's the same kind of impact that I'm hoping this technology can have. Is one of our taglines has been removing machines from between people. And it's kind of a counterintuitive thing for a technology company to say, but that's what we're doing. We're getting rid of the cash register. We're getting rid of the handhelds. We're getting rid of the cell phone. We're getting rid of the cash register, getting rid of the conveyor belt. We're getting rid of the scan gun. And we're letting people engage with people. And we're able to process all the mundane stuff on the back end. Kind of like what Uber did to the taxi industry. It was a chore getting in a taxi before. I was in New York, as I said, before moving out west for Silicon Valley bound for Standard. But when we were in New York, I would take a lot of yellow cabs, and the yellow cabs, you got to hail one down first of all. It's not easy to do during rush hour. Then once you get in, you have to give them directions to where you're going. You have to watch very carefully so that they don't, figuratively take you for a ride. And then at the end of it, you're like negotiating on the price, or you got to pay, you got to slide money through a window. They don't take credit cards. It's this whole lousy experience that Uber completely eliminated. And what happened, in my opinion anyway, the relationship between driver and rider improved dramatically. Like maybe you have a talkative driver once in a while, or maybe you don't want to talk, or maybe you do, but they know where you're going. The price is set, and then at the end of the ride, thanks a lot, have a nice day, you leave the car. There's no that weirdness going on, all that gross thing that was centered around the transaction. And now we've connected humans better, and sometimes not always for better. But
I think that is a great comparison. I think that as you're saying it, because I've taken a lot of cabs in my life, right? And I don't know that I need all the fingers on one hand to count the interesting conversations I've had with traditional cabbies. On the other hand, I have rarely taken an Uber or a Lyft where I haven't had an interesting conversation with the, right? I mean, it changes it in a different way. That is a fabulous metaphor for how this works. I think that's really smart. So, is there? So I know, listen, companies hate to frame themselves in terms of other companies, right? But you're in an elevator with a senior executive for a retail supermarket chain. He looks at you, listen, I'm talking to your competitors. Why do I want to pick you? And you got 30 seconds to make your pitch. What's your response?
I think the most important thing is it's not just about checkout. It's all of the levers that we can impact that affect operations for the retailer, insights that they have no idea about. The thing that shocks most of our customers and makes them most excited is when we tell them things about their store they never knew. Like 50% of all the theft that occurs in the store occurs when someone is buying something. They had no idea. And that's only possible through identifying the takes and the puts and the interactions in the space. And then also by being cameras only, it's a testament to the amount of true AI that is built into our system and the amounts of data and new ways we can find to engage and new ways we can find to improve store layout, store merchandising, and inventory analysis outside of just what did someone pick up and buy, which is what you get with a self-checkout machine. You know what people bought, and that's all you know.
Yeah. So we talked before about a little bit about TSA PreCheck and EasyPass, and EasyPass, or that type of technology, is ubiquitous. I can't remember the last time I saw an actual toll booth. So at what point, how long does it take, not just for your technology, but for checkout free technology to sort of become that ubiquitous? Are we talking decades? I mean, I always think that whatever number I would pick, I'm always going to think it's going to be half as long. What number would you pick?
So I think within a very short amount of time, everyone in the country will have, or I'll say the majority of the country will have shopped at least once at an autonomous checkout store. And I say right now it's less than 1%, right? But I think in 3 years, everyone will have tried it. It'll be in every community somewhere. I think within 10 years, it will be ubiquitous, and it'll be like a rare retro store that's like trying to be like, kind of cool by doing it the old way. But even that is going to be different. And they'll still be using computer vision. It's just going to, we're right now at the top of the mountain, and the snowball has just started rolling.
Right.
We have we have like a half a dozen of stores launched now. We're launching a couple more, I think, in the next couple of weeks. But by the end of this year, we're going to be doing a couple a week. And that's when this year is going to be the year you really feel that acceleration happen. Not just with us, as you say, it's a big market. I think we'll have more stores than anyone else by the end of this year. That's our goal. And I think in 2 years we'll have more than everyone else put together. But I think at the same time, there's a lot of pie to eat, and the world is very big. And I think it's going to be winner takes most, but not winner takes all. There's a lot of different kinds of retail, and we're focused on CPG world, so convenience, drugstore, grocery. But there's some really cool companies out there tackling apparel and electronic stores, and there's all kinds of retails. And what I'm most excited about is the new kinds of retail that we haven't imagined yet. That this platform is going to allow to exist, that people are going to get creative around using. That's what I'm most excited about. And I think some retailers will figure out some new things too. And I know they're working on it.
If you're right, and that many people will have experienced at least once checkout free shopping in the next year,
3 years.
In 3 years, the momentum will be enormous. Because I mean,
Yes.
and first time I went to an Amazon Go store, I remember just thinking to myself, why would anybody ever want to wait on a line after this? And every time I wait online at a retailer, I think to myself, well, if I had Amazon Go right now, I wouldn't have to be doing that.
Let's be out of here.
It just changes everything. Real quickly, is there an obstacle out there?
So the obstacle is how fast we can teach the AI to learn things and then operationalize the deployment of it. And so we spent most of 2019 and 2020 really working on our back-end systems so that we will have the ability to scale. Anyone can make this, well, not anyone, but many companies are able to make this technology work for a store. But that's throwing a lot of effort into it, and that's not scalable. So if you want to do more than that, if you really want to prove to a retailer that you can do thousands of their stores simultaneously, that's really the operational model you need to have fleshed out. And it's not just about the AI working, it's about you're monitoring AI systems across a fleet of retailers. And that's something we feel we've just kind of cracked the code on, and now we're going to be able to start doing it much more rapidly. So we've just gotten to that point, and I think quarter over quarter we're going to be launching more and more stores forever.
Well, listen, Michael Suswal, this has been a great, I'm excited. I think this is, I've always been excited about this kind of technology. I went to your original store in San Francisco. I got excited then. I saw Polar Park. I got excited then. This has been terrific. Thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you.
If people want to reach out to you guys and learn more, how do they do that?
The best way is to go to our website, standard.ai, and all of our contact information is there, and you'll be able to reach basically anyone in the company through that website.
Terrific. Listen, thanks so much. Good luck. I'm sure we'll see each other down the line. Take care.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Cheers.